deals and such that have been brokered with China and some other countries in the UK and such. But there's still some uncertainty. So there could be a lot of hesitancy to run really big deals and blow through inventory.
Well, and the deal with China still has a pretty hefty tariff. So not all, so we started talking to our brands about planning for tariffs in November. So, and a lot of them were already on top of it. I don't want to make it seem like we were all wise. A lot of them are like, oh no, I'm already on it. So a lot of our brands like heavily bought inventory in December. But we had one brand that, they were like really kind of gambled on that, that the tariff thing would be solved within a certain period of time. They actually got hit with that 145% tariff. It just arrived like 3 days before the tariff was reduced, and they ended up with like a $40,000 tariff bill, for a smaller shipment. And so, I think that there still is uncertainty because things do change. And the other thing is, even if they stay exactly where they are, for people who are sourcing components or their products from China, they have a lot less margin. So a lot of our brands that even had been more aggressive growth, we're hearing a shift in the conversation to profitability. When you couple the inventory issues with the increased interest costs, it does make it so, cash flow is really, really important to be monitoring, and brands just can't go for broke the way that they could have, 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of an interesting storm to see exactly how it plays out, because, the numbers from May show that inflation is flat. The working class people have had an increase in salary larger than for a long time. I forget exactly when they said, but, so wages are going up. Inflation is relatively staying flat. The economy is continuing to chug along, but you've got a lot of companies that may have low inventory or have paid those high tariffs and are increasing prices. And so it's definitely going to be interesting to see what kind of deals show up. And it could potentially be an opportunity, right? If this is true, and in the end, less people submit deals, and you're the one who does submit deals, you're going to have more customers to yourself, right?
Yep.
Well, yeah. But if you have the deals and you sell through, and then for some reason you're not able to restock, then that hurts you long term.
Correct.
So, and it really, it's more about consumer confidence, right? So it's, where do people think? So even things like uncertainty in the Middle East and all of those things can play a factor. Now, it could be that people really use this Prime Day to buy deep. It's close to back to school time. There might be some people that are even shopping early for Christmas because they're worried about inventory. So it could be that it still ends up being a really, really great sales day. And of course, there will be a lot of sales attributed to that period. It'll just be interesting to see like how deep the discounts are.
Yeah. We definitely, I don't buy Christmas presents, but my wife definitely uses days like Prime Days to get Christmas presents, and or also those luxury items that, hey, we've needed a new Roomba for about 3 years. I've rebuilt our Roomba must be 5 times. And that this would be a time that we would do that,
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of people that think like that, I'm sure. My mother growing up, she would buy Christmas presents all year long. Yeah. Anytime she would see a sale on something, she'd buy it. And so if you opened her closet, it's like stuffed full of Christmas presents that we would get come Christmas. So a lot of people do that, stocking up throughout the year. So you definitely could see a lot of that.
Yep.
Robin, give us an idea with your clients, how you help them plan or recommend them plan for inventory if they're going into a Prime Day. Let's say they have a product that sells 10 units a day, and they're going to run a big Prime deal. How do you plan for the actual deal and then the months after the deal for inventory wise?
10 units a day is a pretty small number. So,
Mhm.
you know, that for that,
Round number.
yeah, it doesn't make sense to do a lightning deal. And, you know, lightning deals and all those things are gone. So then it looks, you know, we're looking at either a prime exclusive discount or a coupon. There's a couple things to play in it. One is reference price. So if you don't know how, if you haven't run lightning deals before, you basically say, I'm willing to give X amount of inventory at Y discount. And you have to commit to that months and months in advance. Now you can cancel it, but you have to do this minimum discount. If they see that because of the discounting you've been doing, that's not actually the discount that you're saying it is. So the minimum discount is like, let's say 20%. If they look at your reference price over the last 30 days and they say, actually, that's not a 20% discount, they'll reject the deal. So depending on what the discounting structure has been for the entire year, that could play an impact in it. And that might be where, you know, as we're heading into, you know, 2 or 3 months ahead of a tentpole event, that's when we want to really make sure that if we're going to need to do a price increase, we want to make sure we're staying well ahead of that, because we need to make sure that that reference price is set well before the tentpole event. The other thing we're going to look at is inventory. You know, how would this project for inventory? What is their lead times if things went better than expected? What is the potential liability if things go not as great as expected, as far as like long-term storage fees, other ways to move the inventory? So, you know, maybe they can multi-channel fulfill or something along those lines. That's pretty rare. Usually we have pretty good forecasting on that. The other thing we're going to look at is what are their KPIs for profitability and advertising. So if we know that their tacos is X and their, you know, landed cost is this, and this is how much they need to net, then we'll, you know, we kind of work with them to see like what discount is appropriate. And if we can't hit the metric of what we really need, then that kind of all informs the ad budget, right? Because it's not just about the discount. You also need to have the ad budget. And so we'll look at all of those things, and then we might decide to pull back on ad spend the week or two prior. We might decide to go all in. So it's really going to depend on, is their goal ranking? Is their goal profitability? What metrics are the stakeholders really focused on? So when you're working with like a publicly traded company, they might really be looking at top line revenue more than profitability because of earnings reports. Whereas sometimes, especially smaller brands, you know, if we're not really careful to kind of make sure that we're guarding profitability. And if we're losing money per unit, then it needs to have a specific goal. So kind of like discounting subscribe and save initial purchases. We know that we're going to make it up on follow-up purchases, but we need to have the data then to say, okay, we can see that subscribe and save holders, you know, are staying on X number of months. So it totally justifies the cost of losing, you know, a few dollars per unit on the initial sale to kind of promote it during this big event.
Yep.
I have literally nothing to add to that. No value whatsoever. I can only provide comedic relief if required.
Yeah, the subscribe and save ones, which Dana, your products are probably
They're
have
not.
subscribe and save set up. No,
We don't. We
Well,
actually
you got to
don't.
do that first hit
That
free,
you
man.
set up.
Yeah, you know,
Sure.
the thing is that we don't have the margin for subscribe and save. If I'm not mistaken, you have to do at least 10%. Is that right, Robin?
No. So there
10%?
is a portion of subscribe and save that is covered by Amazon. And then, so what I'm not talking about is necessarily increasing the subscribe and save discount from 5 to 15. There's a coupon that you can do that says, I'm sure you've seen it, where it's like get 25% off your first purchase when you do subscribe and save. If you know that you have a consumable item that's replenished 30 days, then you can look at that customer data in Amazon and see, you know, when people order from us, how often are they reordering? And you can see that people are reordering, especially with a new product launch. You got to make sure people are happy with the product. Then you can discount that first initial purchase to get them into subscribe and save. And then you would say, okay, we're not going to make a ton of money on this initial purchase, or maybe we're going to break even on this initial purchase, but by having them in subscribe and save, it will be less expensive than retargeting them with advertising,
which we also don't do.
Yeah, with the subscribe and save though, you can do 5%, 10%, or 15%. So
yes,
it might be worth at least checking out 5% and turning it on, because then you get, you know, that automatic sale every month or every 2 months, whatever they set it at.
Yeah. Jade, I think you should be joining us on these, because Yeah. She's sitting right next to me, listening, giving me thumbs up, thumbs down, threatening me, stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
but she's going to look into that now, because I think the last time we looked at Subscribe and Save is when it very first came out, and it was 20%.
Yeah.
And the data now is so much better. Before it was like, maybe it's working, but they give you so much more data now on repeat customers. So it's really, really valuable. And then the other thing to think about with Subscribe and Save, if you have a product that has a short expiration date and you've been using 2 SKUs to kind of help manage that, you can shift Subscribe and Save from one SKU to another, but it is a bit of a process. And it doesn't make sense to invest in this push for Subscribe and Save if you can't maintain that inventory, because that is really what's going to be required to keep those subscriptions. Or so make sure you have kind of it should not be a willy-nilly thing. It really needs to be a thought out strategy.
Yeah, cool.
Not that you would do willy-nilly, but
yeah, that's I've got a product that it sells pretty good. It was selling upwards of 600 plus units a month, and I think we had 100 and some people on Subscribe and Save. And then Amazon decided to throw the meltable tag on it, and we couldn't get it out of it because I think the requirement is you have to prove that it can sustain like 150 degrees Fahrenheit, and there was no way. This is like a candy product, so it wasn't going to sustain that. We ship it throughout the whole summer, FBM, and never have any problems with returns or anything like that. So it's not like it actually melts. But there wasn't any paperwork that we're going to be getting that could prove it. So right now,
and 150 sounds crazy, but it can 100%. Like if it's 117 in Phoenix, the inside of those UPS trucks are hot.
Oh yeah.
It's basically like an easy bake oven for your products. So
definitely.
Oh,
but
there
the problem
you go.
is, though, we've lost all those Subscribe and Saves, because they don't allow you to move that over to an FBM fulfillment, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, then in that case, what you should do is contact the candy company and say, hey, listen, I've got a new idea. We do bake during shipment, only in the summer, fresh baked, arrived fresh baked. You say, hey, Amazon, just put it at the top of the top bins, and it bakes on the way during delivery.
Send it out raw, and it's done done cooking by the time it gets there.
Yeah, it's a good idea. You should do it. All right, great.
It sounds like a good idea to deliver fresh baked bread in the Phoenix, Arizona area.
Yeah.
Very good. It'll be interesting to watch Prime Day, that's for sure. Any other thoughts on Prime Day, comments or anything like that, Danon or Robin?
I'll just repeat what I've said before. Advertising on Amazon is like fighting with a toddler. Pick your battles, but win them at all costs.
Yes, for
Well
sure.
said.
Yeah. And I think it makes sense if you can sustain the inventory, if you have the inventory to sustain it, and you either have the profit margin to support the discount, or you're willing to take that loss to get that ranking, improve your ranking. And with headlines like this, we'll see if it turns out to be true or not, but you potentially have more customers for less deals, which could lift the deals that are out there to get more sales. So we'll have to hurry up and wait and see, though. But the time to get your inventory in is just about or pretty much past. So by the time you're watching this, hopefully you've already got your truckloads heading in if you're going to be doing Prime deals.
Yeah, I think we've only got 17 units in inventory right now, so we're totally screwed.
17 units. There you go. Yeah. Plenty. You definitely won't run out. All right, let's go ahead and jump on to the next story here. I'll slide us over to the side because this headline's pretty big. So Amazon shuts down Post program after failing to gain traction with shoppers. Amazon will officially shut down its Post program by July 31st, following low engagement and a broader redesign of its site. Posts allowed brands to share lifestyle content in a social media style feed, but failed to align with the shopping behaviors of Amazon customers who come with purchase intent, not to browse like on Instagram or TikTok. Experts say the tool never delivered meaningful ROI, and its removal allows advertisers to focus on proven ad formats like sponsored brands. For Amazon sellers, this means less distraction, more emphasis on ad strategies that actually convert. I wouldn't really call posts and ads. They're referring it to it kind of like an ad here, but it wasn't really an ad. It's just like the social media. It's the first social media aspect of Amazon that they tried to create, which I use posts. I post for the brands that we work with all the time, usually once or twice a week. It doesn't get a lot of traction usually, but every once in a while you get one that takes off and will drive some sales. But I can't say that I'm surprised that they're ending it.
Yeah. I mean, they're probably going, well, we don't have a lot of adoptions, which means we can't eventually charge for it. So we shouldn't keep pouring money into it because it's not going to make us money.
And we've had several brands that have done it. And when anytime a brand would ask me about them, what I would say is, if you have the kind of product that has fun, engaging social media, they are already doing other places that is already yielding you results. Putting that onto Amazon posts isn't going to hurt you, but it's a long-term game. You have to expect 6 months of consistent posting before you even start to see really any organic traffic. And so we have had some brands that have used it successfully, but they're usually in baby or beauty or art, something where they were able to provide the posts and they were very consistent about it. For most brands, it just was not worth the lift. There had been talk about how you were going to be able to kind of run ads, and this was going to be great because you were going to get to be in the feed and it was going to be wonderful. But for most brands, it didn't yield a lot. It took a long time to get the organic results. And I kind of agree that, when they first came out, I just didn't see customers adopting this. But, it never hurts to try. And Amazon was really, for a while, they're giving some heavy, like some good organic traffic when they were first trying to promote it. I think it's funny because we were on a call with an Amazon rep last week, and we're like, she recommended Amazon posts, or it was like the day or two after. And Nate was like, you guys just killed that program. And she's like, no, we didn't. And he's like, yes, you did. And so it's always interesting to see how these things kind of roll out.
It also shows that Amazon doesn't know what Amazon is doing.
Well, that's not the agent's rep. The Amazon is purposely siloed like that. It's a feature, not a bug, but it definitely feels like a bug sometimes.
Right.
What's interesting, so I just jumped over to Amazon posts. I was going to take a look at some of my latest statistics, and right next to, so they got the posts under brand content in the Amazon ads, and right next to Amazon posts it says new. It's like, okay, I don't think it's so new anymore, and you're discontinuing it, but you still got it labeled new.
Well, and she was saying Nate couldn't find it in the announcement in Seller Central, like they took it down. So maybe somebody posted something that they weren't supposed to. But I definitely saw it in Seller Central, but then it looked like it disappeared or something.
Yeah, and now I am looking at my posts here. So like I said, for most of my brands, I've got one of my VAs just posting a couple times a week, and this is the third one that I've looked at. Let me look at one other one here and see if it's the same, and it is. So in May, the engagement and clicks just dropped off a cliff. Like it went almost to zero in May, as if they just kind of shut it off. It's getting a few every once in a while, but totally just tanked. So I'm not sure if that is when they decided, okay, we're done with this, and just stopped giving it any exposure. But for each of the brands that I'm looking at, it kind of is like up here steady, and then May just starts a rapid decline. in all of the impressions and clicks and everything. So it definitely appears that they're going to be getting rid of it for sure. Now, Robin, have you seen any examples of posts taken off for clients and stuff in the past, or it's just pretty much you got to keep posting and posting and posting for
You have
just
to keep
a little bit
posting,
of
and
traffic?
yeah, it's you have to be posting consistently, posting good quality. And then, sometimes it doesn't make sense. Even if a brand has a really good social media presence, what you're posting on Instagram might not follow the guidelines for Instagram posts.
Mhm.
So usually we tell them, unless we can just move them over, it didn't really make sense. Unless it was a really aesthetic brand, then sometimes we did see some a decent enough amount of organic traffic that if it already had the assets, it made sense to do. But if you have to create the assets for it, it just didn't make sense. You should focus on, places where people are actually scrolling.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. And we didn't create anything. We pretty much just took from Facebook posts or Instagram posts and tweaked them a little bit if we needed to. But yeah, I mean, there's not much like this one that we've been posting on in the last 90 days. It's got 1,736 reach, 3 clicks, 48 engagement, and 3,791 viewable impressions. So nothing major going on for pretty much any of them. What was that?
But still something.
It's a little bit, but is it worth me having a VA going in, and actually creating the posts and stuff? Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, I think consistency, like Robin said earlier, consistency is key. Like social media is no longer, so any social posting is no longer instant gratification.
Yeah, for sure.
Algorithmically, you have to be consistent. I see that in my podcast. Like I don't do a bunch of optimization and promotion and run ads or anything like that for my podcast, but there's a post 6 days a week. There's a video 6 days a week on there. And so I've just seen organic engagement go up and up and up and up. And, social media has been like that for quite a few years. If you're not consistently doing it, or even if you're inconsistently doing it, it's almost the same as not doing it at all. But I think that you should be taking advantage of every avenue to put yourself out there, put your brand out there, put your name out there, whatever.
Yeah. 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 I agree. I think posts has always kind of been hidden in Amazon. It's always been kind of one of those things. It's there, but you don't really know if it's doing anything or where it's going or what's happening.
Yeah.
Amazon never really, they pushed it, like you said, Robin, a little bit in the beginning, but then it kind of became an afterthought pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, now they have Creator Connection, and other things for social media for like influencers. And, it also doesn't really make sense for them to try to force this Amazon post thing now that they have these partnerships with TikTok, which got that other renewal. So congratulations to TikTok for another stay in the execution. And Instagram, it makes more sense. I think that they've realized, they're not going to be able to try to like scoop up all of that traffic and you're seeing this in the way that they're adopting like Amazon, like buy with Prime and things like that. I think they're looking at like, there's some things that we're not going to be able to fully incorporate into our platform. And they're looking to expand in other ways, like the advertising on, Prime videos and like a sponsored display for all business, sometimes called non-endemic advertising, and DSP.
Yeah. And I don't think anyone, at least nobody that I know, I'm sure there's some people out there, but no one is opening their Amazon app if they're looking for social content, right? They're opening up their Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or whatever the case may be. Nobody's flipping open the Amazon app and let's see what's going on in the world today, and opening up Amazon to look at that. So it's just a different ecosystem. And I think Amazon's been trying to capture that for a long time, but I don't know if they ever will actually capture it the way they want to.
Yeah.
It's just a different mindset.
Yeah, I could see. My wife thinks that people will want to see more videos, not necessarily posts, but videos. And
Videos
I'm
are
on,
so important.
yeah, I'm on board with that. Like there's there's not enough videos of products. And often when there are videos, it's awful music and like pans, zooms, and 360s of a product. It's like that's not helpful at all. You need someone that says, this is what it is, this is what comes with it. There needs to be basically a what's in the box video, features and benefits video, and a lifestyle video of it in use. And
a
use
troubleshooting.
cases. And troubleshooting, you say?
For some products, you need troubleshooting.
Oh,
So
that's good.
like,
Yeah.
you know, like if you're getting reviews that are saying like the back stand doesn't open on it,
Yeah.
and you're like, push the button right here that says release. You know, like you'd be surprised how much some of those things make a difference. But you're 100% right on that. Where we, you know, we really want brands to upload videos.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, videos would definitely be better, but even then, you know, it's Amazon is more like the, you know, the home shopping network or something like that, right? You're still not, when you're looking for social media stuff, you're not like, oh, let's go get promotion blasted in my face for products that I probably don't want to buy. You know, jumping on Amazon to look at that. But maybe there's some people out there. There's a lot of people who like to watch the shopping network. I'm not one of them, but there's, you know, that network exists for a reason. And my, you know, I look at my wife's social media every once in a while when she's flipping through, or my mother-in-law if she's there, and they'll be watching sometimes these people, you know, pitching different products and stuff like that. So people do that. I'm definitely not one of them, but that market is out there that like to watch those kind of home shopping network style videos.
Yeah, I'm definitely not one of those people, but what I do is when I'm looking at a product, if I find something that's interesting to me on Amazon, I then go over to YouTube and look for video reviews of that product. Or even brand videos of that product.
If it's a big enough one, you know, if it's a high enough spend or something that you need to make sure is the right product and is high quality or something, yes, but you're probably not necessarily doing that if you're, you know, buying a new trash can for your kitchen or something.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I mean, I want my kitchen trash can to self-clean, self-take itself out.
Well, that I might watch a video on. That'd be kind of interesting.
We have a mill and we love it.
A mill?
Yeah. So it's I'm a love the planet kind of person. Diaper, all that stuff. But like, so it's a composter, and you put your food and chicken bones and stuff in it, and then it heats it up and like makes it into compost, and then they come pick it up when our local composting facility comes and picks it up, our compost, like once a month, or you can use it to make compost in your backyard.
Oh, interesting.
Nice.
It's very fancy.
Cool. Now that's something somebody would probably watch a video on, because that they're going to want to research and make sure they're getting something that actually does what they want to do. Because you're going to have a little bit more of a passion around that kind of thing for people who are buying that.
Yeah, it's just for weirdos like me. It's not for everybody, but you know, for us, it makes us happy that we have a lot less trash.
We need weirdos like you on the planet.
Yes. Yes. It's good to be a weirdo. We've all got that weirdo on something, so it's all right.
Yep.
Very good. So anything that you guys know of or recommend for brands to do out there as opposed to post, if this is something that they have been doing? Creating videos, obviously, we talked about. Do you see a lot of brands jumping into creator connections and doing a lot of posts and such there?
It depends on the brand, and it depends on the use case. You know, it's not available for everybody, you know. So usually if we have a young, you know, more like if I have a brand that's in Walmart, Costco, or they're publicly traded, or, they're in Costco, they already have a dedicated social media person. They don't necessarily need our advice. If we have a young or emerging brand, usually what I'll tell them is where I would recommend that you focus either is if you're good at creating content, then you should focus on creating content, building a follow, building brand affinity. If you're not good at creating content, then you need to be actively working to build relationships with influencers in your space. And that goes outside of most people's comfort zones, because you'll be like, hey, but there are more like softer ways instead of a hard pitch to approach influencers. And if your product really is great, we try to limit our clientele to products that we really believe in, then going and having those influencers can make a huge difference. PR firms can be good if you have the right kind of product. Again, nobody's going to get on the news because they have a new flavor of canned beans. But if you have something that's really revolutionary, that can help it, but I think like making sure you're really clear on who your customer is and where they are spending their time. So if you have a 70-year-old demographic, they're less likely to be on TikTok. If you have a younger audience, let's say you have an 18-year-old audience, then you should really be focusing on Twitch. So especially if it's a video game thing, right? We have a brand that's focused, it's kind of in the niche where people at Comic-Con would buy it. And so they're working with influencers in that like nerd geek. And I say that with all affection, as you can see from the back as a fellow nerd, those spaces. So it's understanding where they shop, where they congregate, and some communities won't be on any social media. Some will be in Discords and Slacks, and so you have to figure out how are you going to access where those people naturally reside.
You're definitely a nerd if you can drop Discord as a a community location.
Discords and Slacks for sure.
Well, not only am I a nerd, but I have raised two nerds. And my friend,
nice.
My cousin has her son was like a junior Olympic sports swimmer, and she was complaining about waking up early. I was like, see, if you had raised your kids as nerds, you could sleep until 10 like me.
Because you're up until 3 playing video games like me.
Yeah, Discord and Slack is like the old school IRC channels and IRQ, which was the chat program.
ICQ.
ICQ, yes, ICQ. Yeah, right. Good times.
Yep.
Things have come full
an
circle.
AOL CD.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yes,
I used to get those in the mail and throw them away.
Yeah, all the time. AOL. That was I was the nerd back then who was always like, AOL's not the real internet. You got to using,
after you get it was like AOL was like the gateway drug that got you into IRC and
yeah.
You got mail.
You did that really well.
Yeah. Practice it ever since I was a kid.
I was a computer nerd back then that if you pull up, if you guys know the Firefox browser, of course, when that first launched, Firefox 1.0, they took out a full page ad in the New York Times and created the Firefox logo out of people's names who donated. And my name is in there. So
nice.
Yeah. I was a big Firefox fan back then.
Firefox was good.
Yeah. It's still pretty good, but I got to use Chrome all the time because most of the Amazon tools only work in Chrome and not Firefox, unfortunately.
Yeah.
My son's always like, why are you using Chrome and Edge? You should be using it's Opera. And then there's another one that he wants us to use. But he's pretty deep into the nerd, he's into electrical engineering and stuff. So
yeah. He probably uses Brave and DuckDuckGo and
yes. I've got Brave on the computer. Brave is nice because you can load Chrome plugins, but there's still some things that don't work in it all the time. So,
we do some of the custom automations that we build for clients in Bubble, and it can do okay with Edge and Chrome, but much outside of that, it doesn't. The development side of it doesn't work as well.
Yeah. It's interesting though that for those that remember the internet browser wars, like Internet Explorer, Firefox, and Chrome were battling it out. Netscape back in the day, but now pretty much everything except for Firefox, I think, is run on Chrome. Well, Safari is separate as well, but that's pretty minimal user base. But Edge, which is the new Internet Explorer, is now Chrome based. So Chrome has just taken over everything.
Yeah.
Have you seen Cindy Kroll's talk on Chrome and how it's using how Google, it was really fascinating presentation. She did it at PubCon and SMX about how she's kind of reverse engineered to see that Google is using Chrome to like render pages and using that to crawl. And so they're basically using the computer of your own thing. So it was a really interesting presentation. If you're into that kind of stuff, she's from Mobile Moxie. Her presentation was really, and she's just fascinating. So she's a badass if you want to follow her.
I mean, I haven't seen it, but that makes total sense. Why not crowdsource the processing power of the people that are using your product? I mean, we do that with, or I should say, we've done that with Chrome plugins using the user logged into Amazon plus logged into the Chrome plugin makes it so that you can acquire data outside of from their Seller Central that is not available through the API.
But you have to think about that too. That's a security risk, because that means that as you load your My Chart page, your private health information could potentially be stored someplace. So it's, or if you have like private financials or things along those lines. So it's an interesting thing.
Yeah. You got to be careful when you're loading plugins on a browser that you don't know, or even apps on your phone, because if you're clicking allow it to read all pages in your browser, whatever site you go to, that app or that extension has access to all the information on the page. Yeah. So that's one way that hackers get access to things a lot of times. So you definitely got to be careful.
TikTok app.
Yes, definitely. All right, let's go ahead and jump on to the last story here, and get your opinions on these 3 common mistakes Amazon sellers should avoid, according to Chris Turton. So Amazon expert Chris Turton highlights 3 things sellers should not focus on: review count obsession, day-to-day decision-making, and preserving the launch honeymoon period. Review volume doesn't guarantee high conversions or rankings. Sales velocity matters more, and trying to manipulate reviews can get your account suspended. Making decisions on daily sales data is misleading, as Amazon's data isn't fully accurate for 72 hours. Using a 30-day window yields better results. And finally, every product naturally drops in rank after launch. Don't obsess over keeping it at the top. Instead, focus on sustainable growth.
I've got a couple of opinions here. So some data from Amazon, not all, but some data isn't fully reconciled for 72 hours. Some of it's not reconciled for like 5 days. So the best way to run your business with can't say absolute certainty, but with the best possible results on numbers is going to be every 2 weeks when they close out their statement periods. That's what I think. But that doesn't mean that you should ignore your business on a day-to-day or a week-to-week. But I do firmly believe that you should be running your business off of longer term metrics rather than day-to-day, because one day is not a trend, right?
Yes.
A lower sales day compared to yesterday, that's not a trend. That is a single change, but not the direction that it's going overall. So if you're managing your business with statistics, you need to be managing on trends, not flash in the pan data. So that's number one. Review velocity, I totally agree. I think that and this is me, I'm in the review business, or the review removal business. My top selling product only has a little over 300 reviews. It's been on Amazon for 9 years or something like that. It's got a 4.6 star rating, and my conversion rate is absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, that's in part due to the fact that I'm not advertising, right? And we have brand search. So, but regardless of that, my star rating is still really high on a supplement, mind you, right?
Yep.
That's hard to do. And so it's not about the quantity of reviews you have. Oh, another thing, yesterday, somebody that I know got hit with review manipulation, and Amazon stripped out literally thousands of reviews. ASIN by ASIN, they went across their entire catalog, stripped out roughly between 2,000 and 4,000 on every single ASIN. Took them from 2,000 to 5,000 reviews down to hundreds, 200 to 700 reviews.
Okay.
You know what's interesting? They saw an increase in their star rating and a decrease in their BSR over the next few days. So it's not about how many reviews you have. It's about your overall star rating and your conversion, and by proxy, your conversion rate. That's probably the most important one, I'd say.
Yep.
But yeah, he says buying, faking, misrepresenting reviews is huge Amazon TOS violation. Literally last night, this guy emailed me and said, "Hey, dude, I just had Amazon strip a bunch of stuff from me." And so I took a look. I'm like, "Hey, this might actually work in your favor." But day-to-day decision making, yep, you should know what's going on, but not make operational changes based on day-to-day, but trending. Yeah, I think that's what I've got.
Yep. All right. Very good.
So,
Robin?
I would say review volume is a nuanced thing. So if you are launching an iPhone case, yes, you're not going to get great conversions until you get a lot of reviews. If you are selling, something that's, you're selling a Dungeons and Dragons themed hat, then you could probably have 2 or 3 reviews and get great, and still start to get great conversion. So Amazon tells us you need about 25 reviews, depending on the category and how competitive that will tell, that will kind of depend on how many reviews you need. But 100%, we see products that don't have as many reviews doing really, really well, as long as the listing is really good, the product quality is good, the sales proposition is really good. And as you launch that honeymoon period is really important. Now, if your product is not getting negative reviews, if you have a consistent ad strategy where you're focusing on campaigns that are aimed at ranking, not incremental sales, you can 100% maintain that top position. But I agree that you don't want to be like, oh no, we dropped from number 3 to number 5 in the category or in the subcategory. That's a big panic. We want to look at things. He's 100% right about managing ads on a daily basis. It's like the stock market. There is a delay. If you make decisions based off of the ad performance that happened yesterday, you are making decisions off the wrong data. That data has not settled. You could be killing potentially really important pieces of your campaign.
Well,
so
sorry, Robin, let me just add one thing. Not necessarily the wrong data, but the incorrect time of that data.
Yeah, well, yeah, and so the data the decision that you're basing that off of, right, is it's not the data. The answer is not what you think it is. It's going to change the results, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And the other thing to think about is that returns don't play a factor. You can't see returns coming in and how much that's going to eat into your margins until over a longer period. That's why, sometimes people come into Amazon wanting this really siloed approach, and it will get you to a certain point, but it is very difficult to mean sustainable, profitable, consistent growth on Amazon without a holistic approach where you're looking at listing optimization, advertising, account health, compliance, reviews, all of those things, and then kind of going through that flywheel over and over again, and looking at what does the ad data and the reviews tell us about what we need to change with the listing. Now we've made that change in the listing. What are we seeing in the ads? Okay, let's A/B test a different title. Now some products will get it pretty close. We do work really hard to not have to need a lot of A/B testing because we really focus on trying to make sure we get things right the first time. But it is natural to need to make changes to your listing. And you have to look at that with a holistic period, because you might see, I have a better conversion rate with this title, but it causes a lot of reviews or negative customer experiences. So even though that converts better, it's converting some of the wrong people, which is a death sentence on Amazon, because once your product gets suspended for poor performance, it's very difficult to come back from that unless you're able to prove that you've solved that issue.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying, especially on the reviews. The rating matters a lot more than the quantity. Of course, it depends on the product. Like you said, cell phone cases, you need a lot more to compete, where if you're buying a composter, if you've got 100 reviews and a 4.6 star rating, that's probably plenty good. You're going to be able to compete with somebody with 1,000 reviews, no problem. So it all depends on the product for sure. The honeymoon period that he mentions here is interesting. There's been some debate as whether the honeymoon period actually exists, but I think you definitely see a boost when you launch a new product, of course. And I think he's correct here that you don't want to try to, keep it alive, so to speak, because people are buying off of reviews. So you're going to have a natural little decline potentially after the honeymoon period. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts, Robin and Danon, on using Vine to get that kind of artificial boost of reviews? I've used it successfully for products and semi unsuccessfully for other products, depending on the ratings that come back in.
Yeah. I have a pretty strong feeling on this, and we actually warn our brands. We try to remember to warn our brands before they talk to an Amazon ad rep or business development rep that we want to do Vine in most cases after you have 5 reviews come in. We wait until the first 5 reviews come in. We want to make sure that they're positive, because even if you've been selling D2C and your packaging product is everything, you feel like things are good, your customer message, you're all tuned in on that. We had a thing that was like a bath stone, and when they shipped it to Amazon, they've been doing it D2C, but they just weren't up. That packaging wasn't to the level it needed to be for the warehouses. And there was some breakage. So if we had done Vine right out of the gate, it would have destroyed their launch, right? So we always recommend waiting for the first 5 reviews. Amazon will tell you the opposite. They say, go, go, go. But what I tell...
Yeah, because they get money for it.
Yeah. Well, it's what I tell people is that Vine is great. They are very, very, very honest reviewers. So the problem is they are very, very, very honest reviewers. And if you're a small brand that's launching with a small quantity, that can be a pretty big hit to the margin. If you're a niche product, might not even be that necessary, because you're going to get some natural reviews. We tell them 1 to 3% of customers will leave a review on their own. We're going to use that request a review button as part of our account maintenance process. So, it's not, we don't recommend it for every brand, depending on, things like how many units they have in stock, how quickly their velocity, and how expensive that product is. We have a product that's $2,500 to give away 30 of those, and only be guaranteed 5 reviews. That's a pretty big, it doesn't necessarily make sense for that product.
Yeah. A little bit more on this is I've actually reviewed the contract for Vine reviewers. They are contractually required to give a diversity of ratings. So they can't just say, hey, it's great. Oh, it's crap. They actually have to contractually go give 2 stars, 3 stars, 4 stars. So if you have the best product ever and you know it, and all your customers know it, and you go to Vine, you're still hyper liable to get a 3 or a 4 star, likely a 4 star, but even a 3 star, because I see a lot of 3 stars on Vine. They're like, this product's great. I love this and that and the other. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. But it's a 3 star,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you have to be aware that so Amazon doesn't allow you to utilize other companies to do reviews. Even they may be honest or whatever, right? So you have to pay Amazon to get your reviews, and Amazon makes these reviewers give a variety of reviews that may not actually necessarily reflect their true feelings.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good point. And it makes sense that Amazon would put that in there because they're wanting to make sure someone's just not like 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars on everything, even if it's garbage, just because they want to get more free stuff. So they're trying to tell them that, hey, don't just give 5 stars if you don't think the product is worth 5 stars. But it makes sense that, in someone's head, they might be thinking, okay, I need to leave a 3 or 4 star so I don't get kicked off of here.
Yeah.
And your product might just happen to be the one that they decide to leave a 3 or 4 star on.
Exactly.
And I haven't seen a lot of reviews that were lower than a 4 star that maybe weren't warranted. But the other thing I would like to stress to brands is, we'll get a young brand and it is their baby. It is like their baby going into the world, and they get a bad review and they are just decimated. Really, like, it's okay to occasionally get a bad review. In fact, sometimes it can actually help conversion. If I see all 5-star reviews all at the same time, all telling them they're great, then I don't really believe these reviews are authentic.
Yeah.
So having some reviews that are negative, that's okay. We just want to make sure we're addressing any issues and really coming at it from, whether or not you think their critique is reasonable from their perspective. How did they get there? Was it a fluke, or is this something that really does need to be addressed in the listing?
I find that 3 stars are the most helpful reviews for whatever needs to be fixed or what's wrong with it. 1 stars are typically, now, mind you, I'm in the business of finding the crap reviews that don't belong there, right? But, so if I see a bunch of 1 stars saying arrived broken, arrived broken, arrived broken, over a diverse period of time, then cool, I know that they've got some shipping issues, right? If I see a bunch of 1 stars or 2 stars saying, yeah, this didn't work, this piece broke off of it within the first X amount of time, like, because I've got clients that reach out to me like, hey, I need you to remove these reviews. I'm like, bro, you got a product issue. I'm not removing those reviews. This is legit,
Yeah, for sure.
Besides, they're not even eligible for removal. So I don't take those customers on if that's all they want me to do. Like, I'm not in the business of, anyhow, but
and I would say that's also why it's so important that if you're a brand owner, you need to be in voice of the customer 1 to 3 times a week, depending on your velocity. We say 1 person's a crazy lady, 2 persons a coincidence, 3 person of the same issue. That's stop, drop, and roll. Even if you're selling 10,000 units, that means we need to really aggressively look and see. If 3 people all say it arrived broken, or they all say they got the wrong unit, then that's when we really need to start looking at things. Because, and you might say, well, I'm selling 10,000. What does 3 people matter? When that first 3 happen, only maybe 10,000 people have that product. So it's a small percentage. But if you wait till 50,000 people, you're going to get a bunch more negative reviews. So to stop those things, you have to be proactive. That's why it's part of our service is that we go through and do that, because you have to be on it. So if you're not doing that, if you're picking up one thing, make sure you're watching voice of the customer.
Yeah, that's definitely a nice screen to look at and see. A lot of times it's just people putting the wrong thing in there to get the free return, but then you start seeing those trends. And, I've had it where my warehouse put the wrong sticker on the wrong product, and you send it in and you start getting those. And if you catch it early enough, you can pull those out and hopefully save the product and save a lot of headache as well. So keep an eye on voice of the customer. But yeah, definitely agree on the reviews and everything. I look at the reviews frequently when I'm buying a product. And if you see those 3 and 4 stars and you read them, and sometimes it's people that that's person's just being picky or whatever.
Yeah.
But other times, it could be an issue with the product that could push you to buy something else, or it might get me to buy that product if I just see, all these negative reviews are just people using it in the wrong way or using it for the wrong thing or whatever. So you got to look deeper in the reviews than just quantity, and even star rating in some points can be variable depending on. Now, if you drop below 4, then you're really going to be hurting. But as long as it's above 4, close to that 4.5, you're sitting pretty good.
Yeah, it's actually, so the fulcrum point for any brand is at 4.2 to 4.3, because as soon as you lose that half star, you lose up to 50% of your conversions.
Yeah, you start getting skeptical as soon as you see those 4 stars.
Exactly.
Instead of 4.5.
But that's dependent upon the area that you're selling. Like if you're selling a fat burner and you've got a 3.8, well, you're at the top of the game,
Yeah, that's true.
But typically that 4.3 to 4.2 is that fulcrum point. And actually, Robin, I'm interested to know this. If you've seen this, I have 2 products that totally different brand, but they're the only 2 I've ever seen where they were a 4.2 star rating and displayed 4.5 stars. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, because some reviews can be weighted differently, so that can happen. And the other thing I'll say on the reviews, the difference between 4.5 and 4 and how it impacts conversion. If people say it fit too small, like the product was X, the product was X, and then you've adjusted your listing to say if you've addressed that problem, so it's very clear, that can dampen some of the impact. Now, we don't want to lie; we want to make sure that we're solving the problem, right? But that can help with if you're in that position.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. I appreciate Robin and Daniel, you guys coming on the show.
Yeah, buddy.
And everybody out there watching, I appreciate you as well. We do this every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. So feel free to join us next week. But until then, everybody have an awesome weekend and get ready for Prime Day. It's coming.
Yep.